Greetings, family, and welcome to another edition of Black Talk Radio, where black media matters and black life definitely matters. Today is Sunday, August 5th, 2018. Well, family, this video is about black activists who protest at a progressive convention. As you can see, the title of this activist group, yes, you read it right, they're called the ASSCaucus. We're going to get into this story. Let's get right to it. A group of black activists took the stage at the Netroots Nation Conference on Saturday night to protest the marginalization they claim to have experienced at the gathering of progressives. Several members of a group calling themselves ASSCaucus walked onto the stage to detail their grievances to a crowd of thousands. The demonstration occurred shortly before a scheduled speech by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the progressive who gained national attention when she upset powerful Rep. Joe Crowley to win the Democratic nomination in New York's 14th congressional district in June. Over the course of 15 minutes, the black activists faulted the annual conference for scheduling panel discussions on black activism in the same time slots, called out interpersonal slights from white conference goers, and laminated conference attendees' lack of diversity and inadequate representation of New Orleans residents. Perhaps most of all, the activists were frustrated by a lack of official recognition and scheduled time for a black caucus to meet during the weekend. Quote, "I am not a number. We are not a number," Ashton P. Woods of Black Lives Matter Houston declared to the conference crowd. "The only folks from New Orleans who were here were working the door." Now, isn't that a slap in the face? Woods continues by describing the white attendings who had interrupted conversations, ignored him and other black conference goers, and asked rude questions about what black participants were, quote, doing there. In light of such treatment, Woods said the conference organizers boast that 67% of their panelists were people of color, amounted to, quote, tokenization. He called on black and brown skinned conference attendees to stand up. The informal survey revealed a significant number of people of color in the audience, but they were nonetheless in the minority. Tabitha Mustafa, another demonstrator, asked the New Orleans residents in the crowd to stand, and a mere handful of people rose to their feet. The only folks from New Orleans, who were here were working the door. Were they invited into our panels? Did you invite them in? She asked. Mustafa also rebuked the conference for not providing more compensation and financial help for panelists and other attendees, arguing that it limited the diversity of participants who lacked adequate resources to travel to New Orleans. Well, the crowd was very receptive to the group's admonitions, cheering and applauding the criticism listed by the protesters. When the group asked audience members to threaten not to attend next year's conference scheduled for Philadelphia unless it were more attuned to the needs of black Americans and local residents, the attendees shouted yes. After the ASSCaucus walked off the stage to a standing ovation, Ocasio-Cortez took the stage to similar adulation. She immediately sought to affirm the concerns of the demonstrators. Quote, "As my sister Ayanna Pressley likes to say, quote, the people closest to the pain should be closest to the power," Ocasio-Cortez said, quoting the black woman challenging Rep. Michael Capano in Massachusetts September 4th Democratic primary in the 7th Congressional District. The Black ASSCaucus members were disappointed to find no dedicated time or organizational structure for a black caucus, though a room had been reserved as a, quote, person of color culture space, unquote. Well, let me just stop for a second and just say this. Black people, yes, far too long we've been using the terms minority, people of color, things of those terms. We need to stop using those terms. Be proud of who you are and declare and demand that you are fighting for rights for black people. We need to be clear and concise on what we want nowadays. We see that semantics is everything in the system of white so-called supremacy. We see that language is everything in this system. And with that, we need to use that to our benefit. Use it as our source of power. And so I think it's very clear when they say that they had a room that was reserved, but it was reserved as, quote, a, quote, person of color culture space. And we know when they mean person of color, that could mean an Asian, a woman, a disabled person. It could mean a queer person. It could mean a number of different things. When we speak, we mean black. Black first. And so as the Black ASSCaucus exposes at this interrupting of a conference here, they are demanding that we address issues dealing with black people and black residents of New Orleans. I know I'm not saying it right, but I'm trying. Anyways, I digress. The people responsible for organizing a black caucus did not show up at the conference, according to Khalid Kamal, a South Fulton, Georgia city councilman and conference panelist who participated in the protest. Together with the scheduling conflict of panel discussions focused on black organizing, the perceived affront helped prompt the public display of dissatisfaction. Quote, "We felt like our issues were not being clearly articulated," said Latoya Mathias, one of the founders of the Black ASSCaucus. The goal of the demonstration, according to Kamal, was, quote, "to make sure that this doesn't happen again next year." So they're bringing this to light in 2018 to make sure that it doesn't happen ever again. Netroots has a policy to always work with protesters to surface their demands and see if there are immediate workable solutions, said Mary Rickles, Netroots Nation's political director. Protest is a Netroots tradition, Rickles added. We are honored to work with the community to share their vital ideas for making Netroots a more inclusive, just space going forward. That is a just space, they say. Netroots Nation leaders have committed to a conference call in a few weeks' time to discuss how to improve next year's conference with members of the Black ASSCaucus. Despite the warm reception that the demonstration received, the grievances that led to the protests speak to the persistence of internecine conflicts on the political left that periodically bubble to the surface. Critics often deride the contemporary progressive movement, which matured largely online during the build-up to and the first phases of the Iraq War, for the alleged prevalence of white middle-class activists in the ranks. Three of the last 4 networks nations conferences have now been marked by racial justice related protests. These included a disruption at the 2015 gathering in Phoenix, where demonstrators interrupted presidential candidate forums with Senator Bernie Sanders and former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley, demanding that they pay more attention to police killings of black people and other civil rights issues. Well, family, that's it for the Black Ass Caucus. If you didn't know about them before, now you know. Black Talk Radio. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm done. We'll see you in the next video. Peace out.